What if I told you that the bloodiest war in American history was not fought against an invading empire, but inside one nation, between neighbors, friends, and even brothers, forcing a young country to decide whether it would survive as one united people or collapse forever into hatred and division? Between 1861 and 1865, the United States was torn apart by a storm of gunfire, ambition, ideology, and sacrifice. A storm so powerful that it reshaped the nation's identity and destiny for generations to come. For decades before the war, America had lived with a growing contradiction. The nation was founded on freedom and equality, yet millions of people were enslaved in the southern states. Southern plantations depended on enslaved labor to produce cotton, which fueled both American and European industries. Meanwhile, the North rapidly industrialized, building factories, railroads, and financial centers. Two different societies were forming inside one country. One relied on slavery and agriculture, the other relied on industry and free labor. With every new territory added to the nation, the same explosive question returned. Would it allow slavery or reject it? Each compromise only delayed the inevitable. By the late 1850s, political debates turned into open hostility. Newspapers spread propaganda. Politicians accused each other of destroying the nation. Street fights erupted. Armed groups clashed in Kansas. Trust between North and South disappeared. When Abraham Lincoln won the election of 1860 on a platform opposing the expansion of slavery, Southern leaders believed their future was doomed. They feared losing political power, economic control, and social dominance. One by one, Southern states announced their withdrawal from the Union and formed the Confederate States of America, claiming the right to govern themselves. America now stood on the edge of disaster. In April 1861, Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Cannons thundered across the harbor. Smoke filled the sky. The Union flag fell. These were the first shots of a war that would soon consume the entire nation. Both sides believed victory would come quickly. Young men rushed to enlist. Families waved goodbye with pride. Crowds celebrated in the streets. Few understood that they were stepping into 4 years of unimaginable suffering. The Union controlled most factories, railroads, and shipyards. It had a larger population and stronger economy. The Confederacy relied on skilled generals, strong local loyalty, and defensive positions. Early battles shattered all illusions. At Bull Run, inexperienced soldiers panicked and fled. The war revealed itself as chaotic, brutal, and unforgiving. Soon, massive armies clashed across Virginia, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Georgia, turning farms, towns, and forests into killing fields. Two towering figures emerged from the chaos. On the Confederate side stood Robert E. Lee, a calm, brilliant commander who inspired devotion among his men. Though personally opposed to secession, he chose loyalty to his home state. On the Union side rose Ulysses S. Grant, a determined leader who believed the only path to victory was constant, relentless pressure. Where others hesitated, Grant attacked. Where others retreated, he advanced. As the war intensified, battles grew larger and deadlier. At Shiloh, thousands died in 2 days. At Antietam, more than 20,000 were killed or wounded in a single day, shocking the nation. Blood-soaked fields and rivers. Makeshift hospitals overflowed. Surgeons worked without antibiotics or proper anesthesia. Amputations were performed in minutes. Disease spread rapidly. More soldiers died from illness than from bullets. Letters sent home spoke of fear, courage, loneliness, and despair. In July 1863, destiny seemed to gather in one small town in Pennsylvania, Gettysburg. For 3 days, more than 150,000 soldiers collided in one of the greatest battles ever fought in the Western Hemisphere. Cannon fire shook the earth. Infantry charged across open fields under storms of gunfire. Horses screamed. Flags fell. During Pickett's charge, thousands of Confederate soldiers advanced toward Union lines in a desperate gamble. Most never returned. When the smoke cleared, the Confederacy had suffered a crushing defeat. The tide of war began to turn. That same year, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring enslaved people in Confederate territory free. The war now carried a deeper meaning. It was no longer only about preserving the Union, it was about destroying slavery. Thousands of formerly enslaved men joined the Union Army, fighting not only for their country, but for their own dignity and future. International support for the Confederacy weakened. Europe hesitated to back a slave-holding nation. Meanwhile, in the West and South, Union forces tightened their grip. Railways were captured, rivers were controlled, cities fell. One of the most dramatic campaigns was led by William Tecumseh Sherman, whose march to the sea cut a path of destruction through Georgia. His army destroyed railroads, factories, warehouses, and farms, proving that the Confederacy could no longer protect its own people. This strategy of total war shattered Southern morale and resources. On the home front, civilians also suffered deeply. Inflation destroyed savings, food shortages spread, women took over farms and businesses, families mourned lost sons and fathers. In the North, factories worked non-stop to supply weapons and uniforms. In the South, scarcity became unbearable. Entire cities were reduced to ruins. Churches and schools became hospitals. Graveyards expanded endlessly. By 1864, the nation was exhausted. Many questioned whether victory was worth the cost. Lincoln faced re-election with the war still raging. Critics demanded peace negotiations, but Grant's steady advances and Sherman's successes restored public confidence. Lincoln was re-elected, promising to finish the fight and reunite the nation with mercy and justice. In early 1865, Grant surrounded Lee's weakened army in Virginia. Starved, outnumbered, and cut off from supplies, the Confederate forces could no longer continue. In April, Lee surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. Other armies soon followed. The Civil War was over. The Union was preserved. Slavery was abolished. Tragically, only days later, Lincoln was assassinated, plunging the nation into mourning. The man who had guided America through its darkest hour would not live to see its recovery. The country now faced Reconstruction, a difficult and controversial effort to rebuild the South and integrate millions of formerly enslaved people into society. Progress was slow, resistance was fierce. The wounds of war would take generations to heal. The American Civil War was not just a clash of armies. It was a struggle over freedom, identity, and the meaning of democracy. It tested whether a nation built on ideals could survive deep division. It proved that unity demands sacrifice. From burning cities to silent cemeteries, from heroic charges to quiet acts of compassion, this war reshaped America forever, leaving behind a powerful lesson about the price of liberty and the fragile strength of human unity.